On Thanksgiving, my mother-in-law Priska looked my 6-year-old daughter Diamond dead in the eye and said, "Children from cheating aren't my grandkids," right after rejecting the handmade card Diamond had spent hours making. Then my 10-year-old son Perry stood up and did something that made the entire room forget how to breathe. The whole dining room went silent. I'm talking library during finals silent. Even the decorative pumpkins Priska had arranged with military precision looked like they wanted to evacuate. And me? I stood there like someone had unplugged my entire nervous system. My mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, like a goldfish witnessing the emotional destruction of a child. My daughter Diamond didn't fully understand the words. She was 6, but she understood the rejection. Her face crumpled slowly, like watching a sandcastle dissolve under a wave. And that's when the dizziness hit me. Not because I thought I'd fall, but because I needed something to hold on to so I wouldn't lunge across that perfectly set table and grab Priska by her pearl necklace. Everything had been so normal 30 seconds earlier, or at least Priska level normal, which meant aggressively autumn-themed and aggressively fake. Her dining room looked like a Pinterest board had exploded and been reassembled by someone with a glue gun addiction. Matching napkin rings shaped like tiny cornucopias, a centerpiece that probably cost more than our monthly grocery budget. Candles that smelled like harvest spice, battling with the scent of overcooked turkey. And of course, the favoritism had been flowing like cheap wine at a book club. Franklin's kids went first. My brother-in-law Franklin and his wife Vanessa's children, Jasper and Lily, who were close in age to Perry and Diamond, but lived in an entirely different universe of grandparental affection. Jasper handed Priska a store-bought card he'd clearly signed in the car. She clutched it to her chest like he'd handed her a Pulitzer Prize, swept him into her arms while Gilbert's father Lawrence nodded approvingly from his throne at the head of the table. Then Lily gave her a ceramic handprint ornament from some craft store. Priska actually teared up. "Oh, my precious angel," she cooed, kissing Lily's forehead 3 times. They gave Lily a box wrapped in expensive paper, and when she tore it open, it was an American Girl doll, the kind with the historically accurate outfits and accessories that cost more than some people's rent. Then Perry handed over his gift, a drawing he'd worked on for days, Priska and him at the park, feeding ducks. She smiled, said it was lovely, smoothed his hair once. They gave him a Lego Technic set. Expensive, sure, but handed over with significantly less ceremony. No kisses, no tears. Just, "Here you go, sweetheart," in a voice that sounded like she was reading from a script. Then it was Diamond's turn. They'd already given her a gift. A plastic doll with dead eyes and hair that looked like it had been styled with a weed whacker. The kind of toy that gets donated to Goodwill within a week. Priska had smiled at her when she opened it. That thin, tight smile she reserved for waiters who got her order wrong and telemarketers who called during dinner. But Diamond didn't notice. She never did. My sweet girl was too busy hoping, too busy believing this would be the time Grandma Priska finally saw her. She clutched her card with both hands, construction paper folded carefully, glitter glued in the shape of a heart, crayon letters that spelled, "I love you, Grandma," with the L backwards, because she was still learning. Click the subscribe button, like, and tell me in the comments where you are watching so I can send you a hug. Your support helps us bring more mind-blowing stories, and trust me, you wouldn't want to miss them. She held it out, beaming, eyes bright, bouncing slightly on her toes like a puppy waiting to be petted, and everything collapsed. Priska took the card, glanced at it for maybe 2 seconds, set it down on the table like it was junk mail, didn't even say thank you. Then she leaned down, slow, deliberate, looked my 6-year-old daughter directly in the eyes, and with a smile that could cut glass said, Children from cheating aren't my grandkids. I felt every word like a physical slap. Diamond froze. The sentence hit her like a kill switch. Her smile didn't fade. It shattered. Her mouth trembled. Her eyes filled. Then the first tear slid down. Slow and heavy. The kind of tear a child cries when the world stops making sense. Lawrence shifted in his seat, suddenly fascinated by his napkin. Vanessa looked down at her plate like it held the secrets of the universe. Franklin's face was carefully blank, the look of someone pretending they hadn't heard what they definitely heard. And Gilbert. God. My husband looked like someone had shoved him underwater. His eyes were wide, stunned, his entire body frozen. He kept opening his mouth like he was going to speak, but nothing came out. Just air. Just shock. And me? I was vibrating. Rage crawled up my spine in hot electric waves. I felt it in my teeth, in my fingertips, behind my eyes. Every muscle in my body coiled tight, ready to explode. But before I could speak, before I could unleash 6 years of swallowed fury, Perry stood. My 10-year-old son, the child Priska tolerated because he looked like a Jackson. The one who'd never challenged her, never questioned the favoritism. He stood up so fast his chair scraped loud across the hardwood floor. Everyone flinched. Perry walked straight to Priska. His jaw was clenched, his hands were shaking, but his eyes? God. His eyes burned with something I'd never seen in him before, something fierce, something heartbreakingly adult. He reached down and grabbed the Lego Technic set she'd just given him, picked up the entire box, all 5 pounds of it, and dumped it on the floor. Pieces scattered like shrapnel across Priska's pristine hardwood. The crash was deafening. Then he picked up his drawing, the one she'd called Lovely, and placed it carefully at her feet. The room gasped. Even Franklin's jaw dropped. Vanessa's hand flew to her mouth. Lawrence froze mid-reach for his wine glass. And Perry, my beautiful, angry, protective son, looked his grandmother dead in the eye and said, voice shaking but steady, "If Diamond isn't your grandkid, then I'm not either." Silence. Thick, stunned, suffocating silence. We left 10 minutes later. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't explain. Just grabbed both kids' hands and walked out while Priska sat frozen in her chair, surrounded by Lego pieces and shattered expectations. Diamond cried the whole way home. Perry held her hand in the back seat and didn't say a word. Gilbert drove with white knuckles and a jaw so tight I thought his teeth might crack. And me? I stared out the window and realized something I should have understood years ago. This wasn't a surprise. This wasn't some sudden cruelty. This was the inevitable explosion of a woman who'd been poisoning my family for 6 years. One polite smile, one passive-aggressive comment, one dismissed grandchild at a time. This wasn't new behavior. It was just the loudest version of it. For 6 years, Diamond's entire life, Priska had been perfecting the art of polite exclusion. The kind that's hard to call out because it's wrapped in smiles and excuses. The kind that makes you feel crazy for even noticing. Family photos were a masterclass in strategic positioning. Priska would arrange everyone with the precision of a wedding photographer, placing Franklin's kids front and center, arms around her neck. Perry got position next to Gilbert. And Diamond? Always at the edge. Sometimes literally cut out when Priska cropped the photos for Facebook. Oh, the frame size was awkward, she'd say, like it was the camera's fault and not her deliberate choice. Birthday parties told the same story. Perry got thoughtful gifts, books about things he loved, Lego sets he'd mentioned wanting. Franklin's kids got extravagant presents delivered with theatrical bows and kisses. Diamond got generic discount store dolls still in their plastic packaging. The kind grandmothers buy in bulk when they can't be bothered to remember what a child actually likes. And the comments. God, the comments, always disguised as innocent observations. She doesn't really look like Gilbert's side, does she? Funny how genetics work. Perry's all Jackson, but Diamond. The sentence would trail off, loaded with implication. That Thanksgiving had started exactly the same way. We'd arrived at Priska's house at 2 p.m. to find it looking like an Instagram influencer's fever dream. Every surface covered in coordinated autumn decor. Orange and burgundy everything. Fake leaves scattered artfully. A wreath on the door that probably cost more than our monthly water bill. Franklin and Vanessa were already there, their kids already wrapped in Priska's enthusiastic hugs. Priska air-kissed my cheek without making eye contact, greeted Gilbert with actual warmth, touching his arm, asking about his week. Then her eyes slid past Diamond like she was scanning for someone more interesting. Perry got pulled into a hug. "Look at you! You look so much like your daddy when he was your age." She smoothed his hair, beaming. Diamond stood there holding her card, waiting. "Hi, Grandma," she tried, voice small and hopeful. "Hello, dear." Polite, distant, already turning away. Diamond tried harder throughout the afternoon, offered to help set the table, complimented the centerpiece, asked if Grandma needed anything. Each attempt met with distracted politeness. "That's sweet, honey," without even looking at her. Then came dinner. Priska had place cards. Of course she did. Calligraphy on little autumn-themed holders. Franklin's family clustered near her, and Lawrence at the head of the table. Perry got positioned next to Gilbert, across from Priska where she could see him. Diamond's place card sat at the far end, between me and an empty chair meant for someone who'd canceled last minute. Perry noticed. His eyes narrowed. He opened his mouth, but I shook my head slightly. "Don't. Not worth it." The meal was performed cheerfulness. Priska held court, telling stories about Gilbert and Franklin's childhood, asking Jasper and Lily about school. She addressed Perry occasionally, but rarely looked Diamond's way. My daughter shrank smaller and smaller in her seat, picking at her turkey, going quiet. After dinner, Priska orchestrated the gift exchange like a game show host, saving the best for last. The expensive presents for Franklin's kids, complete with build-up and applause. When it was almost Diamond's turn, she leaned close to me and whispered, "Do you think Grandma will like my card?" My heart shattered, because I knew. I knew exactly how this would end, but I smiled and said, "She'll love it, baby." Lying to my daughter because the truth, that her grandmother would reject her again, would hurt so much worse. Or so I thought. I had no idea how wrong I was. I should have seen it coming from the very beginning. The warning signs were all there. I just chose to ignore them. I met Gilbert in college when I was 21, and he was 23. It was a sociology class, one of those general education requirements everyone suffers through. The professor was droning on about family structures and traditional gender roles, and I raised my hand and challenged his entire premise. Half the class looked at me like I'd committed academic treason. After class, Gilbert approached me with this crooked smile. "You're not afraid to speak up. I like that." 6 months of coffee dates turned into late-night conversations that stretched until sunrise. We talked about everything: our dreams, our fears, our childhoods. He was thoughtful, attentive, different from anyone I'd dated. I fell hard. Then he said the words that should have made me run. "My mom can be particular." The first dinner at the Jackson house, I wore my best dress and brought flowers like I was auditioning for a role I didn't know I'd already been rejected for. Priska answered the door with a smile that never reached her eyes. Cold. Evaluating. Finding me lacking before I'd even said hello. She asked questions disguised as getting to know you small talk. Where is your family from? Translation: Are you our kind of people? What does your father do? Translation: Are you good enough for my son? She called me Erica 3 times. I corrected her twice. The third time, I gave up. After I left, Gilbert told me her verdict. She said I was too opinionated, too independent, not soft enough for family life. Translation: I wasn't the docile daughter-in-law she could control. Gilbert defended me, but weakly. She'll come around, he promised, pulling me close. Just give her time. She never did. The wedding was a war zone disguised as a celebration. Priska fought every decision. The venue wasn't prestigious enough. The guest list needed people I'd never met, her friends, her distant relatives. She suggested I take a few etiquette classes before the big day, like I was some uncultured embarrassment she needed to polish. At the reception, she positioned herself in every photo, literally pushing me to the edges. Her toast still echoes, "Welcome to the Jackson family. We have high standards." Everyone laughed. I smiled through gritted teeth. When Perry was born, she softened. But only toward Perry, her first grandson, the one who looked exactly like Gilbert. She'd visit and ignore me completely, talking only to Gilbert and the baby. Made parenting suggestions that felt like attacks. "Jackson babies don't cry like that. Maybe you're holding him wrong." I learned to tolerate her. For Gilbert's sake. For family harmony. For the illusion of peace. I should have fought back then. 3 years into marriage, I was reviewing our finances when I noticed something wrong. We were comfortable. Gilbert had a good job. I was working part-time, but we weren't saving like we should be. Our account showed mysterious monthly deductions I didn't recognize. $850 here, $600 there, sometimes $1,200. When I asked Gilbert about them, he got defensive immediately. "Family expenses," he muttered, not meeting my eyes. I pushed harder. "What family expenses?" He finally admitted the truth, and it knocked the air out of me. He'd been paying Priska's mortgage since he was 19 years old. She'd convinced him it was temporary after his father's business struggled. That was 15 years ago. 15 years of temporary. He was also sending monthly allowances to Franklin, rent assistance, car payments, emergency funds for emergencies that happened every single month. Total? Roughly N $350,000 per month. That's about $470 USD. I stared at him like he'd confessed to having a second family. Gilbert explained it like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Family takes care of family, Erica." Priska called him her rock, made him feel indispensable. Franklin was going through a tough time that had apparently lasted a decade. His father Lawrence knew but said nothing, letting Gilbert shoulder the entire burden. Gilbert was raised to believe this was his duty, his role, the burden of being the successful son. I was furious, not just about the money, about the secrecy. We could have paid off our mortgage by now, saved for Perry's education. Instead, we were funding Priska's lifestyle and Franklin's irresponsibility. "Please don't make waves," Gilbert begged. "It'll cause a war." So I agreed to let it go, but resentment built like pressure in a closed container. Every time Priska criticized me, I thought about that mortgage payment. Every time Franklin showed up with a new purchase, I calculated what we'd sacrificed. Over the next few years, the amounts increased. Priska's emergencies became more frequent. Franklin's needs multiplied. Our savings account stayed stagnant. And through it all, Priska treated me like I wasn't good enough for her son. The woman we were bankrolling couldn't even pretend to respect me. The irony burned. When I got pregnant with our second child, Priska barely acknowledged it. No excited planning. No offers to throw a baby shower. Just polite questions asked with the enthusiasm of someone inquiring about the weather. When Diamond was born, Priska visited once. Briefly, she peered into the bassinet with a strange expression on her face. "She doesn't look like Perry did," she said. Not congratulations. Not joy. Just assessment. As Diamond grew, the comments multiplied like weeds. "She has your eyes, your nose, your everything." Said like an accusation, not an observation. At family gatherings, Priska would point out how Perry looks just like Gilbert at that age, then glance at Diamond with thinly veiled skepticism. Genetics are funny things, aren't they? The truth was simple. Diamond is my mirror image at that age. More specifically, she's the spitting image of my Aunt Kimberly. Same dimples, same almond-shaped eyes, same smile that lights up a room. I have childhood photos that prove it. The resemblance is undeniable. But Priska didn't care about proof. She cared about control, about undermining me. The favoritism became impossible to ignore. Perry got invited to special grandma days, movies, museums, fancy lunches. Diamond was rarely included. When I asked why, Priska always had excuses. I thought she'd be too young. I didn't want to overwhelm her. Birthday gifts told the real story. Perry got thoughtful, expensive presents, things he'd mentioned wanting. Diamond got generic dolls from discount stores, still in their plastic packaging. At 4 years old, Diamond asked me, "Why doesn't Grandma like me?" I told her Grandma loved her, hating myself for lying. At 5, she stopped asking, stopped trying. At 6, she made that card. Still hoped. Still believed that maybe this time would be different. I watched my daughter seek approval from someone who withheld it like a weapon. And I did nothing. Because Gilbert asked me not to rock the boat. Because family harmony supposedly mattered more than my daughter's feelings. Until Thanksgiving. Until the line that changed everything. If you're invested in seeing how this story unfolds, please hit that like button and subscribe to the Formidable Revenge channel. Share this with anyone who's ever dealt with toxic family dynamics. You're not alone. We left Priska's house in silence. Didn't say goodbye, didn't offer explanations. Just grabbed both kids' hands and walked out while she sat frozen in her chair, surrounded by scattered Lego pieces and shattered expectations. Diamond cried quietly in the back seat. Perry held her hand and didn't say a word. Gilbert drove with white knuckles, his jaw so tight I thought his teeth might crack. At home, I tucked both kids into bed, whispering reassurances I didn't believe. Grandma didn't mean it. Everything will be okay. Lies that tasted like ash. I found Gilbert at his desk at midnight, staring at his computer screen. Bank statements pulled up, spreadsheets open. He was breathing hard, like 6 years of swallowing everything had hit him all at once. "I added it up," he said quietly. 15 years, and 41.8 million. That's over $56,000 USD, our children's education, our future, our freedom, gone. I watched as Gilbert opened his banking app. Each action was deliberate, final. Cancel mortgage autopay, cancel Franklin's monthly transfers, remove Priska from all account access. Click, click, click. "I should have done this years ago," he said, his voice cracking on years. We stayed up until 3 a.m. talking, really talking, for the first time in our marriage. He apologized for enabling her, for choosing false peace over our family. "I was trained to believe I owed them everything," he said. "That being a good son meant sacrificing everything, including you, including our kids." I told him about every comment, every slight, every wound I'd absorbed over the years. Years of swallowed anger poured out like poison finally being purged. He listened, really listened. We made a plan. No more money. No more enabling. We'd protect our children from her toxicity. If Priska wanted a relationship, it would be on our terms. Gilbert called his father Lawrence the next morning. Lawrence sighed. Your mother won't take this well. Gilbert's response was steel. Then she shouldn't have destroyed my daughter. For 48 hours, nothing happened. No calls, no texts, no explosions. I almost let myself hope she'd accept it quietly. Then my phone rang at 7 a.m. Priska's name lit up the screen. I answered, and the war began. Priska's voice was shrill, shaking with rage. No greeting, no preamble. Just accusations fired like bullets. How dare you turn my son against me? She demanded explanations for the stopped payments, threatened to tell everyone what kind of woman you really are. Claimed I'd poisoned Gilbert's mind, stolen him from his family. Then she went there. That child isn't even his, is she? Diamond doesn't look like any Jackson I've ever seen. You trapped him with Perry and then cheated, didn't you? My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. I wanted to scream, to defend myself, to destroy her with words. But Gilbert took the phone from my hand. His voice was cold, measured, lethal. You looked my 6-year-old daughter in the eye and told her she wasn't your grandchild. You've taken our money for 15 years while treating my wife like garbage. You already destroyed this family. You just didn't expect me to see it. Priska sputtered, tried to interrupt. Gilbert didn't let her. We're done. Don't call again. He hung up, a guillotine of a syllable. The silence afterward was deafening. I was shaking, crying, relieved, terrified all at once. He held me while we both processed what had just happened. 20 minutes later, my phone exploded with texts. Priska had called everyone: cousins, aunts, uncles, church friends. Her version of events was already spreading like wildfire. I'm a cheater. Gilbert is brainwashed. Diamond isn't his. Franklin sent a long message defending their mother, called Gilbert ungrateful and cruel. Other relatives stayed silent, waiting to see which side would win before choosing their allegiance. Gilbert looked at me, his jaw set. We need to end this. Not with silence, with proof. I knew exactly what he meant. The DNA test we'd done when Diamond was born, at Priska's suggestion, ironically. The photos of my Aunt Kimberly. The financial records showing 15 years of exploitation. Time to go public. Before we could post anything, Priska struck first. She went to Facebook with a long, detailed post. The heartbroken grandmother narrative. Claimed Gilbert had abandoned his family for a manipulative woman. Posted old photos of Perry with captions about real Jackson blood. Conspicuously absent? Any photos of Diamond? She hinted heavily that Diamond's paternity was questionable. The post got dozens of comments, mostly from her church friends and distant relatives. People who didn't know us, didn't know the truth. The extended family group chat exploded. Priska and Franklin tag-teamed, painting us as villains. He cut off his own mother without explanation. After everything we've done for him. Some relatives stayed neutral. Some took sides. A few messaged me privately asking for my side. But most stayed silent, not wanting to get involved in family drama. Gilbert and I spent hours crafting our response. We included the DNA results showing 99.999% probability of paternity. Side-by-side photos of Diamond and my Aunt Kimberly as children, the resemblance was undeniable. A detailed breakdown of 15 years of financial support. N41.8 million total. Screenshots of passive-aggressive texts from Priska over the years, the full context of Thanksgiving, what she said, in front of everyone, to a 6-year-old child. Our statement was simple. We are done living under fear, manipulation, and false accusations. Our daughter Diamond is 100% ours, And we have the DNA proof. The real question isn't about blood. It's about why a grandmother would reject a child for looking like her mother's family. We've financially supported family for 15 years while being treated like outsiders. We're done funding cruelty. Gilbert's finger hovered over post. I nodded. He clicked. Within minutes, the notifications started flooding in. But this time, the tide had turned. Don't miss what happens next. Make sure you're subscribed to the Formidable Revenge channel and hit that notification bell. Drop a comment below if you think we did the right thing. The comment section filled quickly, and this time, the voices were on our side. I always thought something was off about how she treated Diamond. N41.8 million? Are you serious? That poor baby. What kind of grandmother says that to a child? Even some of Priska's church friends quietly unliked her post. Franklin tried to defend their mother in the comments but got ratioed so hard he eventually deleted everything. Lawrence called. Your mother has gone too far this time. Priska tried to delete her original post, but screenshots existed everywhere. She posted a non-apology. If anyone misunderstood my words, doubled down in some family chats while playing victim in others. But her reputation was cracked beyond repair. The woman who'd presented herself as perfect, gracious, family-oriented was now exposed as manipulative, cruel, and financially exploitative. 3 days later, Gilbert got an unexpected call from his cousin Louis. Louis was wealthy, child-free, and notoriously private. He'd been watching from the sidelines. I read everything, Louis said. I need to tell you something. Gilbert listened, his expression shifting from confusion to shock. Your mother was in my will, significantly. After your father passes, she would have inherited a considerable trust. Louis paused. I called my lawyers yesterday. She's out. Completely. Gilbert was stunned silent. Louis continued. I'm setting up education trusts for Perry and Diamond instead. So they're never touched by that woman's bitterness again. And so they know that family should mean protection, not destruction. When Gilbert told me about Louis's call, we sat in our living room with our kids asleep upstairs. For the first time in 6 years, maybe longer, the air felt clear. We weren't rich, but we were free. Free from monthly payments to people who despised me. Free from pretending cruelty was love. Free from teaching our children to accept less than they deserved. The next morning, Diamond asked if Grandma loved her now. I knelt down and looked her in the eyes. Baby, Grandma has some things to work on, but it doesn't matter. Because you are loved. Completely. By people who matter. She thought about this, then nodded. Perry wrapped his arm around her shoulders, and I knew we'd made the right choice. Sometimes protecting your family means cutting out the poison, even when the poison is family too. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. I love you.